History is filled with punishments so cruel, they were designed not just to kill, but to terrify. Here are 3 of the most barbaric ways our ancestors distributed justice. Number 1. Keel hauling. A punishment for piracy or desertion. The earliest recorded use comes from the 8th century Byzantine navy, as mentioned in the Byzantine-Rhodian Maritime Code. However, images of similar methods have also been discovered on Greek vases dating back as far as 500 BC. The technique was vicious. The victim, bound with rope, was dragged along the barnacle-encrusted keel of a ship, either from one side to the other, or the entire length of the vessel. If the sailor did not drown, his flesh was torn to shreds. The barnacles, razor sharp, could strip a man to the bone. Some historians believe William of Orange, the sovereign Prince of Orange and a future king of England, Ireland and Scotland, introduced the practice to the 17th century Dutch Navy as an official, although rare, punishment. It was so feared it needed only to be threatened to keep sailors in line. A famous depiction survives in a painting from 1650, the keel hauling of the ship's surgeon of Admiral Jan van Ness by Dutch artist Leef Verschuur. The condemned, bound hand and foot, is dragged under the vessel as officers watch from the deck above. Though rarely used, keel hauling became a legend of naval cruelty, its mere name enough to conjure terror on the high seas. Number 2. Schwedentrunk, the Swedish drink. A name given by German victims of Swedish troops during the 30 Years' War between 1618 and 1648. Villagers captured by soldiers were bound to a table or to the floor, a funnel forced into their mouths. Then they were made to swallow foul liquids, excrement, urine, even boiling manure. Their swollen stomachs were then beaten, crushed, or pierced with spears. It was a grotesque ritual of humiliation and agony, a way to break civilians without killing them, to leave survivors as warnings to others. The horror of the Swedish drink echoed long after the war. It was described in literature most famously in The Adventurous Simplicissimus, a 1668 novel recounting the brutality of the conflict. Even centuries later, the Schwedentrunk stood as a symbol of war's inhuman cruelty, where death itself was sometimes kinder than survival. Number 3. Hanged, drawn, and quartered. Dating back to the 13th century and becoming statutory by the 14th under King Edward III, this punishment for high treason was brutality personified. An execution in 4 parts. The condemned were first fastened by their feet to a wooden plank and dragged behind a horse to the gallows, then hanged until near death, their body broken, yet still alive to face what followed, their organs cut out and burned before their eyes, their cries mingling with the cheers of the crowd. Finally, they were beheaded, their body quartered, with each part sent to a different location as a stark warning to any who dared defy the crown. The method was only ever applied to men, as public decency decreed the anatomy of a woman to be inappropriate for the sentence. Any woman found guilty of high treason was still drawn by horse to her place of execution, but burned at the stake instead. The first recorded use of the method in full was during the reign of Edward I, also known as Edward Longshanks. In 1283, when Welsh royal Dafydd III turned his back on the English crown, declaring himself Prince of Wales, he made himself the target of Longshanks's retribution. After his capture and execution, Dafydd's head was placed on a spike at the Tower of London, his limbs displayed in York, Bristol, Northampton, and Hereford. Arguably, the most famous victim was Sir William Wallace, the Scottish knight and guardian of Scotland, executed in 1305 for fighting against English rule in his homeland. His head displayed on London Bridge, the quarters sent to Newcastle, Berwick, Stirling and Perth. A message carved into flesh that rebellion would not be tolerated. Others followed. The conspirators of the gunpowder plot in 1605 suffered the same fate. Even in the 18th century, men were still sentenced to this horror, until the practice was finally abolished in 1870. These punishments were not simply executions. They were bloody theatre, messages of agony, and spectacles of pain, to warn the populace of consequence and keep the living in line. Follow Footprints in Blood for more gruesome history.